Hello, everyone. Welcome to another amazing episode of Outside the Studio. Thank you for joining. I have a very mischievous little kitty with me today who is trying to knock over my equipment. So if you hear a loud crash, bang, boom sound, and you could see my microphone moving maybe around, or maybe not. You can't see that because you're listening. I can see the microphone moving around because she keeps putting it. Anyways, I'm really excited to have this special guest on my show. This is not only my best friend, but someone that I have looked up to from the day that I met her and just been in awe of her grace and her eloquent thought process and ability to speak and go deep on things. And it's one of the things I cherish about our friendship. Like way back in college when we met, we would sit and have these really long, deep conversations just about life, just about anything and everything. Like nothing was taboo. Nothing is taboo still. So without further ado, I introduce you to Cassandra. Are you going by Schwitzgibble now?
Oh,
Wick?
Cass. Yeah.
Cass. Okay. She has moved across the country away from me and my poor little heart and is living in kind of a suburb of Frankfurt, Offenbach, Germany. So, Cass, how are you doing? It's like evening there, right? 6-ish, 5-ish?
It is evening. It's actually because the US has already entered daylight saving time. We're only 8 hours apart today, so it's 5:23.
Oh, that's
as we speak.
Pretty good time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cass and I have gone through like well, I mean, I always reference a timetable when I'm trying to figure out what's a good time to chat with you. So, and you've been over there for has it been a couple of years now, right?
Almost 2 years. It'll be 2 years in April.
Yeah. So she
Crazy.
married this German man and he took her away from me. Everybody feel bad. No, I'm just kidding. It's really fun to go visit you.
Including me, though. I mean, I miss you and Oregon just absolutely, like in my bones. I miss home.
Yeah. Home misses you too. And my heart.
Especially now during our birthday month.
Yeah.
I feel like the distance even more. Our hiking, our smoothies, our yoga, our running, our hanging out with animals and eating really good food. All of that is.
Yeah, me too. So Cass and I have this long, well, first of all, our birthday month, we're both born in the month of March. So it's really fun to celebrate our birthdays together. And since Cass lives across the world, well, we haven't been in the same country. No, I'm sorry. We haven't been living in the same city as each other for several years now. So we have been practicing a long distance relationship for probably like a decade. Something like that. Or maybe a little bit more.
I think the last time we lived in the same city was, oh goodness, what was it, like 2008? Right before you moved to Seattle.
Yeah.
And I moved to Portland.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So over a decade.
Wow.
Of having this friendship, not only long distance, but long term, I think it's something to be celebrated, and it's not an easy thing to maintain and to stay close and to feel this close. And so I think it would be fun to talk a little bit about how we make that work. Like what are some of our tips and tricks for other people out there who have friends that are far away, who you've known for a while? What it is that makes this work. And obviously, like, I love you to death and you're my soul sister. So right there in and of itself is like, I want to make it work, so I will. But we have some fun little practices. Do you want me to share first and then you add on to it? Or do you want to go first?
Oh, go ahead, please.
Okay. Well,
Take it away.
one of my favorite things that Cass and I do, and this is your idea, Cass, is to ship boxes. Well, it first started out with just like trading closets. So we would trade closets all the time in college. And then when we moved away from each other, we would end up shipping closets. So we would pack up a little box of things that we were sick of that we didn't want to get rid of and mail it to each other, probably like once a month or so, once every other month. And it's just so fun because when I get your stuff, it's so thoughtful. Like you've clearly thought of me, you've pictured me in something. I feel like I'm being wrapped up in a hug by you, and I can smell you. And these are clothes like we've been trading for, again, over a decade, some of them. So they have all these memories attached to them, right? Like a trip to Mexico or road trip up to Portland from Ashland. It's such a magical thing. And this was your idea, Cass. So that's probably my favorite little tradition we have. What do you want to add on to that?
I think I agree. I don't remember that being my idea, but um, I do agree that like just the anticipation of like I just got a box from you today for my birthday, which is tomorrow, and um, it's almost like I think for me the process of getting gifts for you is almost better than getting the gifts you send me because I love thinking about you and like finding something that like I guess what you said is kind of what I'm trying to convey, like sending you love and hugs because we can't physically be together. I want to give that experience to you in the way that it's available.
Yeah.
Um, but as far as like the overall maintaining a friendship that's long distance and long term, I think the thing for me that's been the most helpful is that in the last couple of years, I think you and I have really gotten better at communicating with each other around like if I'm going through a patch where I'm feeling insecure, like I'm not hearing from you as often as I want, or um, we don't have time to check in and see each other's faces. I think the process of hashing that out and being able to tell you like I would just really need time with you, or um, I'm feeling some insecure attachment happening,
Mm-hmm.
um, has really helped me feel like I can weather the distance and the all that that entails. Um, and I mean, I think that there's also like there's a way that our efforts are matching. Like you make an effort to reach out and find time in your super busy schedule so that we can have calls um, and see each other, every couple of weeks at least. And we both are making an effort to text each other. And um, I think it gets really difficult when one person is like really making all the effort and the other person is just kind of along for the ride. I had one friendship that basically fell apart for that reason when I moved to Germany. Um, and that's super painful. It's a really painful thing when you're far away from everyone and suddenly you just stop hearing from people you care about. It's kind of like that out of sight, out of mind experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
It's rough.
For sure. And Germany is just so far away. Yeah, so it really is like a practice, just like any other relationship, romantic or otherwise. It's a commitment, and it's a willingness to show up, and it's a practice. And we've had so many opportunities to grow with each other. And I think one of the things that's really helped is that we're on this similar path of working on ourselves simultaneously. And
Mhm.
as we go through these things, like these emotional upheavals or these self exploration journeys, we're always able to like talk about it. Like you said, we're able to say, hey, I'm feeling insecure about this. This hurt my feelings. Like one thing that I think you've really taught me is this ability to be honest and vulnerable with my feelings in in the face of someone else, which is such a hard thing for me to do. And this, like
Yeah.
I put up this, and most of us do have this self-protection mechanism. I mean, all of us do have a self-protection mechanism, and mine shows up in the way that like I close off and really go inside and stop communicating. So one of the things that I've learned from you and you've helped draw out in me is this ability to say, "Hey, I'm having a hard time. I'm feeling vulnerable. I'm feeling emotional. I'm upset." And just to allow that to be this thing that is said without you feeling like you have to fix it. So I really value that. Thank you.
Yeah, I've seen big changes in you with that in the last, I would say, probably year and a half, especially.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it's really, I think that's something I really love about our friendship is we get to watch each other unfold more and more. And I know you have a huge influence on me and the things I work on and how I work on them. And um, it feels nice to hear you say that that's something that happens for you too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're a mirror for me. We've always been mirrors for each other. And so when I see you doing your own work and I see how you show up in a vulnerable way, it gives me permission, and it inspires me to do the same, I think is what I'm trying to say. It really, it's like, oh, if Cass can do this, okay, then I can too. It's okay, you know?
That's cool.
Yeah, it is cool.
I I just realized like one of the fundamental things about our friendship that I hope everyone gets to have a friend like what we have, this kind of relationship is I think you're probably one of the very few people in my life, like actually maybe the only person who I feel like I could go out tomorrow and just like do a shooting spree and, just or something insane and you would still be there.
I love that.
Like, and just to anybody listening, like that's not even
Yeah, if you
a
knew Cass, it would be like
possibility.
the reason she chose those words is because it's like the most ludicrous thing that we could ever imagine you doing, right? Like you wouldn't even hurt a fly. But I get the analogy of yes, it's the unconditional love. It's the unconditional, okay, what happened? Why did you go crazy there? I know you're still in there. Talk to me. Let's unpack this.
Yeah. And let's get you a lawyer. Like,
Yes. Right.
yeah, I think that's the same is true for you if you, went on some maniacal like trip and did the worst possible thing, like I would still love you and I would still show up for you. So
Yeah.
that is the thing. Like I think it is really hard to make these friendships, especially, in today's world to make these friendships last with the, added complication of being far apart and in COVID where we can't even travel
Yeah.
to see each other, is just like the security that I feel and didn't always feel,
Hmm.
but feel now in our friendship.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been a journey to that sense of security and safety. My foot's falling asleep. I have to adjust my foot. Okay, that's better. Ah. So speaking of, I think speaking of insecurity and our relationship and this evolution, I've been asking you to be on this podcast. Actually, we talked about creating our own podcast a few years ago, and so here you are here. Yay! Thank you for being here. But I know that like this idea of visibility and showing up in this way is scary, and I get it. And so I'm wondering if you're willing to talk about what that's been like to you, for you, what it means to you, and yeah, talk to me a little bit about visibility, especially with our oversharing on our society's oversharing on Facebook, on Instagram, on all these ways we really want to be front and center in the spotlight, and how I don't want to say resist, but like there is a certain amount of resistance there for you. Would you mind, can we unpack that a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay.
um, as I as you were like leading into this, I noticed that I'm starting to sweat a little bit and get nervous because this week has been a week of risk taking for me in this sphere. um, I really have struggled with like the idea of being out in the world and have, I would say, worked pretty hard to stay kind of in the shadows. And like I think I make personal connections, but I'm not like really active in trying to draw attention to myself.
Mhm.
And you know, there are lots of reasons for that, and I've been reflecting on it this week, and I think that one of the big like lingering things for me is really um, that in my environment growing up, the people responsible for my abuse, which was extensive and um, covered a lot of territory, it was really like a safety maneuver for me to stay as much out of their attention as possible. Um,
Mm.
and so, like, just the whole concept of drawing attention to myself feels really unsafe.
Mm.
And that's something that I'm working on. Like, I currently have a role at this organization as managing director for the Westfeld Institute for Emotional Hygiene. And as fate would have it, it's really not possible to be in that role without without doing some of this, without being out in the world. And so I've known this for a long time. And Tess, I'm sure you know better than anyone that I am really good at digging in my heels and waiting until the last possible minute to start on like a work start working on something that I really don't want to address,
Mhm.
um, which is this idea of really being seen. And yet here we are.
Here you are.
Damn it.
I got you. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
In the
Oh.
most loving way. Um, well, and the work at the Westfield Institute, the emotional hygiene work, I think in a big way has allowed you to take that step into that place of maybe fear, but also does it feel a little bit exciting as well?
Ooh. I mean, I get a thrill from like this workshop that you and I are involved in planning together. Um, there's there's a real like in doing that and even asking for that to get created and
Hmm.
for the people who are participating to approach them was really hard for me.
Hmm.
Um, like risking rejection and setting myself up to be in a position where these people I really admire, for them to think I'm weird or like who is this person even? Like, why would we want to do anything with you? Um, so it's like partly that preemptive, like I just assume that people are judging me in that way. And it really stops me from trying to reach out and make these opportunities happen. But truthfully, like the success of the organization I'm essentially running is dependent on just that, which is real irritating for me personally. Like me just stay in my little social media free mostly life and just like fly under the radar. I could do that and be pretty content, but that's not the way the cards have been laid out for me. So
Yeah. Well,
here
and
we
there's
go.
something to be said for being social media free. There's people that do it, and there's value in it. Like there's definitely value in taking a step back from social media and just being like, I don't need that in my life right now. I want to take a break. I want to really check in with myself because it can be very, there's value in it. And there's also value in just, it can be so comparative, and when you think about your judge showing up, my judge is real strong. I think we have that in common. So my judge shows up. I'm scrolling through Instagram, Facebook, whatever. Oh, this person has more likes, more followers. There's more comments, and we're just talking about their hairstyle. I'm like, well, what am I missing here? Like, what's the
Yeah.
secret sauce? um, and not to say that that's not a value either, because like we all draw inspiration from different ways, and maybe it is a hairstyle that really is like, oh, that's very inspiring, I want to get out there and do something similar. It's just all creative juices that we're sharing and cultivating. But I think it's healthy to have a balance. I don't know what that balance is, I'm working on it myself, of working with an organization. Kitty, she keeps stepping on my headphones. Um, working with an organization like the Westfield Institute, building a project together, bridging these amazing people like Isak Garcia is doing this workshop. We should probably talk a little bit about that with us in May. I believe her dates are May 22nd and 23rd.
Yeah.
That's brainchild cast. Like you were like, I see this vision of emotional hygiene, which is, I feel like, a relatively new field of study. Not a lot of people are aware of it, or know what it is. Bringing that in with the physical practice of backbending, which is Isak's bread and butter. And that kind of stemmed out of his experience with Bikram and 26 and 2, and,
Mhm.
and morphed into this Jedi Fight Club, I believe he calls it.
Mhm.
Cass
Yeah.
has done it. I haven't, so she can talk more extensively on that. And then ending with parasympathetic nervous system. So soothing, rest and digest, really calming. And that really creates such a balance in the body. The emotional cleansing, that cleansing from the inside out, opening up the physical body, and then really soothing and balancing. This
Mhm.
is the concept behind this workshop that you created. What am I missing? Anything?
I feel like that really covered it. I mean, this really stemmed from my personal experience with chronic anxiety and PTSD. And um, you know, I am aware that when there's a severe trauma, that happens in our lives, that it's not just something in the emotions, it's not just something in the body, it's in both, really, both places. And so, for me, like, I have a really strong pattern through the right side of my body that um, gets activated when I'm in a space of high anxiety, and if I'm feeling triggered in that trauma. Um, so the back bending is part of my practice to keep the psoas muscles nice and elongated, and to um, open the heart space, like open the body, get the breath moving, and be in present moment where anxiety is a future facing situation. So usually, like, in a space of anxiety, we're not in our bodies in the present moment.
Mm-hmm.
And back bending helps snap us into that present moment. Um, the emotional hygiene work is so complementary in my experience, with like understanding, because of its somatic component. Like, emotional hygiene work is present moment, it is body based, um, and it's really so effective at helping us release those places of trauma, and understanding like what emotions are stuck in us.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like you said, the tapping into the parasympathetic nervous system, soothing, and learning how to be a person who rests. I think a lot of people don't like, we don't know how to rest anymore. We think of resting as like, sitting down at the end of the day with a glass of wine, or um, maybe taking a nap or sleeping in on the weekend. Like, rest is, it's an active practice. Like, you have to create space for that. Which, by the way, before we jumped on this, I just did one of your yoga nidra meditations
Oh,
that are on your podcast, and I highly recommend. um I think the one I listened to is just 16 minutes, and it's like, that's all it takes to really come back to the body. And for, you know maybe you don't even know how to come to your body,
mm-hmm.
because that's also something like that several years ago I couldn't do.
Mm-hmm.
But now, through a lot of these practices that we're talking about the workshop, I I have learned how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping to unlearn how to leave my body, but that I am where I am, and
Mm-hmm.
it's maybe one day I'll get there. But yeah, this workshop is going to be um really, really restorative. I think people will leave there feeling like they've just been relaxing at a spa for a week,
Mm-hmm.
getting pampered, and that's the goal, of course.
Yeah, I'm super excited. I'm so honored to be a part of it. I can't wait to experience it for myself. It is, I think it's valuable just to a reminder that we teach the things that we need to learn. So this is something that I need to learn myself. It's something that I practice daily. I also have a really quick knee jerk reaction. I spend most of the time probably feeling like I'm this floating head. I always talk about my floating head analogy. and and because I learned very young that my body also was not a safe place. So when we talk about being able to be in the body, connect with the body, it's like if you spend most of your time outside of that sense of physically inhabiting your body, when you get there for the first time in years, maybe, or when you stay longer than is comfortable, that's for me when anxiety comes up. And it's not uncommon for me to sit down for meditation or to lie down for yoga nidra practice and have my anxiety come right up in my face. Because as
Mhm.
soon as I get still, as soon as I rest, right, that's when all of those feelings that are trapped in the body start to be like, okay, here we are. Like, let's process, let's, acknowledge me. Hello, I'm here. So that's why
Yeah.
these practices are so important to us, and that's why we're really passionate about sharing. Um, and so thank you for reminding me to bring that up. Our workshop, put on by the Westfield Institute, is May 22nd and 23rd. It's a Saturday and a Sunday. And I have all the details for being able to sign up on my website, which I would definitely be sure to link in the show notes to this episode. And also in terms of emotional hygiene and the Westfield Institute itself, if that's something that you're interested in, Cass is the managing director, so she can really um, dive a little bit deeper into that. And also, we had Tim Westfield of the Westfield Institute on the podcast a couple of episodes ago, talking about how that theme, this idea was developed, and where it really stems from. Cass, is there anything in particular you want to share about emotional hygiene? You shared a little bit already, but in your experience, you know, what else would you say about it? Anything?
Um, well, I think for me, I'd rather share like how this work has been meaningful to me rather than talk about the theory behind it. I think
Mhm.
um, I started doing emotional hygiene work with Tim Westfeld, the founder of the Institute, about 6 years ago. And I was having some really severe panic attacks, and like the kind where I would lay down and I could see my pulse just jumping out of my wrist, um and was really like really wound super tight like all the time. Um and I ended up in a session with him, and he expressed that he was pretty worried about me, which was something that really shocked me. Like, I had worked with therapists and counselors for several years, and really always got the impression from them that I was like pretty fine. Like, yes, my childhood had there was a lot of trauma, like a lot of really strange abuses that happened to me. But overall, like, they were like, okay, yeah, you're just another client, and we'll talk, and you'll get to vent, and
Mhm.
you leave feeling a little like it was cathartic because you just get to have that experience of talking about something.
Mhm.
And what I realize now is like the difference between emotional hygiene and our traditional like psychotherapy is really like, in emotional hygiene, we're not engaging the story you tell yourself about yourself
Mhm.
and the story you tell others about yourself. We're engaging what's actually true about you. And I found that method really disarming.
For
I
sure.
don't know, Tess, if that word resonates. Like,
Oh, 100%. That's exactly what I would say. Yes.
yeah, it reminds me of like that when you talk about like the lobster, how the lobster occasionally like goes and hides somewhere on the ocean floor because it's a crustacean, but it outgrows its shell, so it needs to like shed that shell
Mhm.
um and then regrow one that fits its current state. I feel like for the last 6 years I have been a lobster without a shell.
Mm.
And that's really like the I think the hardest part of this work, emotional hygiene work, is relinquish, like, the surrender of it.
Mhm.
and the willingness to meet myself as I actually am without the stories about who I am.
Mhm.
It's it's wild. It's a trip. And sometimes, I'll have sessions with Tim and I'll leave thinking like, okay, well that was pretty mellow. No big deal. And a couple days later, like you don't even realize the change that's happening, but you just get pummeled. You get pummeled by this wave of stuff that you didn't even know was there. Um, so it's always an adventure, and I think our goal with this institute is, we're a teaching organization, so we want to teach other people to carry on this method of coaching. So it's not therapy, it's coaching work, um, because it is so powerful. Um, and I think about all of the different ways our society would improve if people were able to feel their emotions, if they were able to accept their emotions. Um, my life is completely changed, like completely different, um, from when I started this work. So
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything else that you want to hear about that.
No,
Happy to talk
I
about
think
it.
that's great. I appreciate you sharing. I know it's a vulnerable subject, and I would agree with you that it's really disarming, and it puts I always think about whenever we have this conversation about emotional hygiene, it puts me back into my first touch with it. And as I was saying before earlier in the podcast, that I have this, my self protection mechanism is to completely close off my emotions. Like I put up a brick wall. And I remember sitting down with Tim the first time. We must have been sitting for like no more than 5 minutes. And I can't even remember what Tim said to me, but just this river of tears like exploded out of it felt like out of nowhere, obviously out of my body, but it was like I had no control over my body. It was like this thing had just a dam had burst, really. And so yes, it's very disarming, and it can be scary to do that work because it puts you firmly in your body, which it may or may not be a safe place for you. You might have learned that being in the body is not so safe. And so yeah, I appreciate that that kind of work is it peels away those layers of the stories we tell about ourselves, which is what Cass was explaining. And in accepting that whoever you are in this moment, that is enough. And
Mhm.
and you deserve to be happy. You deserve for the universe, and the universe is on your side. That's something that Tim said a lot, is like, can you believe, let's play with this idea that the universe is on your side, that the universe has your back, um that you don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything but just be, and that is enough. That's, I think, one of my big takeaways from the work that I've done with Tim and you at the Westfield Institute, which is so valuable. It's just so valuable. Okay. So,
Yeah.
um, where do I want to go from here? I think what I'd like to hear, I want to be mindful of your time because it's probably close to dinner time, but I
No,
think
it's okay.
love to know is what if there's any words of wisdom you're living by these days, like a book that you're reading that's invoking some words of wisdom, or just like a motto that you have running through your head that keeps you in your practice and in your body.
That's a really good question. I, you know, as you know, am a prolific reader.
Mhm.
And I just picked up this book, by Jen Hatmaker. In fact, I think I have it right here. And it's like the seven. So it's and the experimental mutiny against excess. So basically the idea is she takes these 7 different categories like clothes, shopping, waste, food, possessions, media, and stress, and cycles through trying to reduce the amount of excess in her life. So I'm super excited to dive into that. I think like I am a consumer, and and I think like with just the state of our planet, and just trying to always ask myself questions about how I'm contributing to what's happening on our earth, and how it feels to have access to so much, and what that means for like my bank account, what it means for my mental health, my lightness in the world, and how much freedom I experience. So I'm really excited to dive into that.
I love that. Sounds like a good book.
Yeah, it's got quite a like I wasn't expecting there to be quite such a religious aspect to it. I think that that's the author that's where she's at, and so it's really written through the book. So I'm, I don't identify as like a Christian, and don't really have that belief system. So, but I still am trying to read through that and take away the wisdom that's there, because there definitely is some.
Yeah.
Another thing that I read this morning, actually, it really hit me, was this quote by Carmen Mojica. And it says, "I cannot underscore enough how important it is to have people in your life who are delighted by you." Yes, delighted. It actually is foundational to the self-esteem of a child to have their adults be delighted by their existence. You are worthy of having your full essence enjoyed. I don't mean just sexually. Surround yourself with people who enjoy you, who find pleasure in being around you and witnessing you. None of that lukewarm, they cool people shit. Be around people who fuck with you heavily and joyfully.
The author, tell me the author's name one more time. Carmen
Mojica.
Carmen Mojica. Yeah, I'll add that quote to the show notes. That's a great one. To me, as I was thinking about chatting with you today, I was thinking about just that when I first met you, that concept that you saw me in a totally different way than I saw myself. And as I looked at you and saw my reflection in you, I liked that better than what I was thinking inside my head. And so you showed up as a person in my life immediately, and have always been this person who it really feels like you genuinely enjoy me. And I don't think I'm making it a too strong of an assumption here, because we have decades of sharing friendship and relationship and experiences together. And so, yes, I empathize with that, and I love that. And thank you for sharing. I feel like that wraps up our relationship.
Yeah, I feel that too. I think one of my favorite things about us is that we find the worst of situations absolutely fucking hilarious.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. We have some stories.
Like the time in Mexico with the cactus leaves and the face planting on the concrete, and
Yeah. So, okay. Well, we can tell this story. Cass and I, we had we just graduated from college? It was our senior year in
Just.
college. We had just graduated and we were like, let's go to Mexico. We deserve a vacation. It was a stressful senior year. And so being poor college graduates, I literally had no money. And so Cass was like funding my trip. That's kind of an aside. So we get to Isla de Mujeres, which is on the Cancun side of Mexico, take a boat to this beautiful island. We're staying in a hostel, and we decide, I think it was like the first day there, that we're going to go for this run. And so I already had a little bit of some of the delicious cuisine in my system. And as anyone who has traveled to a foreign country knows, those different spices and ways of cooking can kind of wreak havoc on your gut for the first couple of days, maybe the whole time you're there. So we're going for this run and okay. So we're going for this run and this is like kind of a developing area, so there's like construction and weird sidewalks and like steps where they're not aligned, like there's a step up and random steel posts sticking up out of the ground. And so there's these construction workers off to our right. And Cass and I are running along, and as they do in Mexico, like they're kind of cheering for you and shouting things at you. And we both look over to smile or flip them off or do something, like acknowledge that they're shouting at us. And I can't remember who it was. Was it you, Cass, that pancaked?
Oh yeah.
It was Cass that
Yeah.
pancaked over this steel random thing in the middle of the sidewalk sticking up. She turns her head to the right and just bam, like falls flat on her face.
I still have a scar on my ankle from where I kicked that metal post,
Yeah, it
the
was
one that took me out.
legit. So we get to the Cass somehow gets up and we like are young and nothing can keep us down. So we continue on our run.
Young and rubbery. It's
And it's
fine. I'm
like
bleeding. It's fine.
let's just keep going. It's like what 90 degrees and 95% humidity. So we're just sweating balls. And we get to the end of the island because it's not very long. So we're turning back around, and all of a sudden my stomach starts to rumble, and it is not gonna stop. So I'm like, I have to find a place to go to the bathroom. And if you travel to Mexico, that's like, it's kind of hard to find a place to use the public restroom. And so I don't even know what this little shed was, but we find this little dwelling that seems to be abandoned. And sorry for oversharing TMI, but everything that I had eaten just kind of flushes out of me. And I'm like, what am I going to wipe with? There's no rocks. There's no toilet paper, obviously. And Cass like hands me this papery, dry piece of cactus leaf or something. Cactuses are kind of
It's just
pokey. I don't know if you knew that.
crumbling.
And so that, does the job-ish. And we leave that place and go back to our hostel and continue on many more adventures on that trip. You got stung by a jellyfish, didn't tell
Oh
me.
yeah. Yeah.
It was quite the adventure. So we have many stories like that when things like this happen, maybe some people you get mad. Cass and I just like burst out into fits of laughter for a good 30 minutes sometimes.
Yeah, it gets painful. Like there was one detail that we forgot about that story is that while this was all happening, there was a truck full of people who were watching all of this happen.
I blocked that out, I'm sure, because I have no recollection of it.
Yeah, there were like probably 10 people sitting in the back of this truck, and we couldn't entirely close the door all the way to this shed that you were going to the bathroom in because it was completely pitch black in there. So the door was cracked open. So it was like I'm standing outside just dying, laughing so hard I'm crying, and these people are staring at us, just trying to figure out what these two crazy women are up to. Very, very amused looks on their faces. I saw a little bit of fear.
Are they going to be all right?
um,
Yeah.
that was a good one.
Yeah.
That was a good story.
So my takeaway is find yourself a friend, reconnect with an old friend. I don't care where they are in the world, but build a relationship that, stands the test of time. Look for it, seek it out. It is worth it. Cass, thank you so much for being here. Yeah, I know this was like a challenging thing for you to do, to show up. So I appreciate you being here and sharing yourself with us. Is there anything else you want to add before we say goodbye?
Well, I just want to thank you for being so patiently persistent in trying to convince me finally to do this with you. And I think, as I stand back and look at this next chapter in my life of trying to be more visible in the world and get comfortable with all that that means, I really am looking at you as an example of that. So, um, thank you for always like being willing to take those steps as well, and for being such a good example to follow.
Aw, thank you. You're welcome. Yeah, thank you. All right, my dear. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Please let us know if you have questions or comments or follow-ups or feedback. We appreciate that. I will let Cass go, and hope you all have a lovely day, evening, morning, whenever you're listening.